Portal commitment or portal pivot? You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Let's jump right in, shall we? Portal news on Koby Brea. Do I have any for you? The answer is yes and no. According to Tristan Ferris of Kentucky Insider, this is a quote. I'm sure some of you saw this on X, formerly Twitter. Contrary to some reports, Dayton transfer Koby Brea is set to arrive for his Kentucky visit later today. The visit will last until Wednesday. His priorities in a school are to, quote-unquote, showcase his game and to win a title in college, end quote. So despite the crystal ball from 24/7, from Rivals, some of my own intrepid reporting that Koby Brea to UConn is all but done, here we are. Koby visiting today through Wednesday at Kentucky. I've been to Lexington. There is absolutely no need for him to stay until Wednesday, but it's likely just means all of today, all of tomorrow, leaving Wednesday morning. So we're going on his own criteria here. Quote, showcase his game. So what's that? Everyone, unless you've lived under a rock, Koby Brea is the best available three-point shooting threat in the transfer portal. So that's a wash. UConn has one of the most efficient offenses in the country, and they look for PPP, not PPP loans, everybody. Points per possessions. And Koby Brea was number one in the country in PPP on catch and shoot opportunities at 1.61 points per possession. And on his attempts, Mark Pope's BYU squad shot a ridiculous 1,087 three-point shots last year, second in the country for attempts. So there can be a conversation about which is more important, the efficiency of UConn's offense or the attempts that you can create in Mark Pope's run-and-gun BYU-style Lexington offense. Koby being a 50% shooter from three, pretty damn accurate. To have that many chances to showcase his game, you might lean Kentucky on that one. The flip side is, I said this a couple weeks ago. When Koby first entered the transfer portal, he's got more than just three-point catch and shoot in his game. Step back threes, the ability to utilize the dribble a little bit. He wasn't utilized at Dayton in pick and roll a ton, where he can be used his big frame and get downhill like he would at UConn, a la Cam Spencer. I think he showed he's not just a catch and shoot guy. And I don't think Dan Hurley and his staff would be spending time with this kid, checking in, taking him. I've heard they took him to dinner. Fleming's, by the way, at West Hartford. Nice spot. Fleming's always a great spot for a steak. Not a sponsor, but if they want to, hit me up. I don't think Dan Hurley and his staff would be spending time with a kid who's a one-trick pony, to be completely fair. If they wanted that, they would have gone all in on Brennan Housen. Because if they felt like they had all of the ball handling they need, all of the size they need, then they would have looked to someone else who could just be that catch and shoot expert. And I think there's the rub. By the way, Brennan Housen, the former Villanova kid, transferred to Kansas State. So I think there's the rub is Dan Hurley is looking for a kid who is as good a shooter as Koby, but has a little bit more in his bag. So I think it's an equal decision in terms of showcasing his game between UConn and Kentucky. But I think if you look back and see the transformations of both Cam Spencer and Tristan Newton at UConn, you got to tip the scales back to UConn on that alone. And if we're talking, to use his quote, win a title in college. Checks notes. Oh, yeah, I'm wearing a back-to-back UConn national championship shirt. Sure. Not a 8 titles in 100 years of Kentucky basketball, most Final Fours, some of which were you make the tournament and it's a Final Four. Look, the idea is I can sit up here and make fun of the fact that Kentucky really hasn't won modern NCAA tournament titles. History is history. They have 8 national championships. We have 6. I happen to have been alive for all 6, in alive meaning at minimum 18 years old or above. So it's been a nice 25, 30-year run. And until someone knocks us off, we're running college basketball. So it would make absolutely no sense based off of Koby's criteria of I want a chance to win a national championship at Kentucky. He's got 1 year, guys. This isn't a sophomore. If part of his criteria is to win a title this year in college, the only year he has left, he goes to UConn. And essentially it's come down to Koby Brea is going to choose between the University of Kentucky and the University of Connecticut. That's it. Those are the only 2 schools left. And frankly, I hate to say this because I like this kid, but his transfer portal recruitment has been a little weird. Because I've gotten reports through a UConn chat, but also very non-biased folks at Devils Illustrated, also folks at The Athletic, who have said this transfer portal situation, he never really truly had Duke's attention. You know, I'm not trying to take up for Duke because I can't stand Duke and their fans, but the reality is they didn't really want him. Why? It's not for me to say. But they didn't want him. Kentucky does, clearly, because they're having him in for a visit. That cancellation at Duke really was just, they never really had a set date in general. So a little choppy scenario. But Koby has a great opportunity to showcase his game and win a title at UConn. You can't say the same at Kentucky. What are Kentucky's odds to win the national championship next year? If we're just going strictly on the betting odds, 50-1? Because they don't even have a complete roster yet. He'd be part of a group that has to come in and learn a brand new offense. We're not sure if Mark Pope can do that. He's been a good coach at BYU. Not saying anything against him. I think it's a good hire. But things are a little bit different in Lexington. This is not a, 5 McDonald's All-Americans just come in and you're in the top 10 automatically. Not happening. The only name that Koby Brea should be worried about in terms of Kentucky is most recently Jackson Robinson entering the transfer portal. He's a 6'6" combo guard out of BYU. Silky smooth. Played under Mark Pope already. He's going to take a look at the NBA. But you got to think if he doesn't get a great draft evaluation, he's reuniting with Pope. Well, coming up, transfer portal pivots as we get closer to the deadline of players who can enter, and a new rule about graduate transfers we'll educate you on after this. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. We already talked about that. But here is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with your friend to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends with you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasures, a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent or for rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, well, we have some new transfer portal rules. I know a lot of you have asked about Do you think it's good for the game? Do you think it's bad for the game? I think it's both. I think it's both good for the game for the interest. Freedom of movement is always a good thing for people in general, because if coaches are allowed to do it, players should be allowed to do it too. Well, the NCAA has recently implemented these changes to transfer rules, particularly affecting graduate transfers. Under the new legislation, graduate transfers must now enter the transfer portal before the final transfer portal window closes for the respective sport. So for basketball, it's May 1st, which is checks their notes 2 days away. And for football, the portal closes tomorrow, April 30th. So that will mark the last opportunity for graduate transfer to enter the portal until next December. Similarly for college basketball, right? So that deadline is May 1st. So previously, graduate transfers were subject to different rules and timelines when considering their transfer options. This allowed more flexibility for undergraduate athletes to transfer and play immediately if they met specific academic criteria. So this adjustment eliminates the need for NCAA waivers for a second-time transfer among underclassmen. So like for us, Cam Spencer was a perfect example of that. So he entered the portal late May, committed June 6th, and it doesn't work like that anymore. So if you have the Cam Spencer types that are out there, so they have to get in just like everybody else, whether you're a graduate transfer or not. So according to the NCAA press release, student athletes attending to enroll as graduate students at a new school can initiate their transfer process at any point during the academic year, but must do so before the sport's final transfer window closes. Those changes reflect ongoing efforts by the NCAA to adopt its policies to better accommodate student athletes' needs and aspirations. As Rich Eisen has said during the NFL draft a little bit, he said, congratulations to players that are out of the clutches of the NCAA. So I don't know about you guys, but I think at some point, I think the NCAA just needs to move themselves out of the way and be a kind of a governing body that doesn't really do much other than provide travel, although that wasn't a good thing for UConn fans, as we found out in the NCAA tournament. But I think there's some things that need to be done to help with these transfer portal rules. But until they actually, change anything really that's life altering, I think the second time transfer is kind of life altering for players, because now they can move for their last year. I'm not a huge fan of that, because it really does feel like professional sports. But let's just not be naive about it anymore, guys. Back in the day, when players would go to a school where they considered student athletes, yes, but they also but there was also an opportunity for them to make money, and it was done illegally. Now it's done on the up and up, so to speak, and we are in a place right now where that is what's going on. So if we do pivot away from Koby Brea, who is it going to be with? Is it the Aidan Mahaneys of the world? He clearly got interest. He took a visit to UConn. From all intents and purposes, I heard it went well. He's not the most. He reminds me of the guys in the NFL draft who get drafted and they're very stone faced, right? Like a Kanye face, no smiles. Aidan is very, milk toast, does not show his emotions. The same picture he took at UConn, he took it at Kentucky too. The same picture he took at Kentucky, he took at Virginia. So maybe they're asking him to not smile. Maybe they're asking him not to emote, but he didn't look super excited about any of the visits. So it's hard to just kind of look at a picture and say, oh, that kid's coming. I like Aidan Mahaney. I like his game. I think he can do a lot of different things. He's a great shooter, good catch and shoot kid, good player going to his left. He's clearly got some wiggle to his game. But honestly, guys, my biggest pivot would be to Max Shulga. There is something about this kid. He is got like ice water in his veins. I just feel like 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds can get a shot up at any time. He is, to me, he's almost more of a Tristan Newton replacement versus that Cam Spencer, Koby Brea type, because even though he's a 40% 3-point shooter, he is a prototypical kind of that European shooting guard, right? Ukrainian kid, is looking for one more year of college eligibility here. I just think there's so much good about him. We chronicled him about a week ago, he stands out as one of the top shooters in the transfer portal. He was a 14.3, 3.5 assists, almost 5 rebounds a game at VCU. Those are light Tristan Newton numbers. I liked his drawing fouls rate. He basically drew a foul every time he went to the hoop 49.2% of the time. So it was very impressive with that. He's a Ryan Odom disciple because he was under him at Utah State. He's a career 40% three-point shooter, despite, maybe this is why they're not going after him. I guess I've dug deeper into it. He had some back spasm issues late in the season. He still led the VCU Rams in scoring. But also another name that popped up just recently, Jackson Robinson, 6'6" combo guard. I mean, if he's clearly in the portal. If we're willing to, I think if Dan Hurley and his staff, I feel like they're very comfortable with the 4 players we have coming back, right? So that means if they don't get a top transfer, if they don't get a Koby Brea, if they don't get an Aidan Mahaney, if they don't get a Max Shulga, if they don't get a Zurich Phelps, who I've talked about as a sleeper pick, why not just hang tight and let a kid like Jackson Robinson go through the NBA draft process, right? Where he doesn't get a first round grade, so he's in the transfer portal, and then you go hot and heavy with a guy like that, because these guys who are in the transfer portal before May 1st can come to you at any time. They can come late. So if you get a player that's that good, it's worth kind of holding a little bit, right? Any Braveheart fans for you out there? Just that hold. Maybe a player comes late, right? I feel like because we are very close to a guy like Koby Brea, where it's going to be coming down to us in Kentucky, we have that kind of wanting of that instant gratification. But if it means getting a player that's better and we get him in late June, I'm totally fine with that. So that's what I would be looking for, guys. We'll look around the portal after this with an update on roster construction and why no UConn players outside of Apostolos are going to transfer. We'll talk about that after this. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let me tell you about a recent experience with buying tickets. Ever had one of those frustrating moments when you're trying to snag tickets for a Major League Baseball game? I sure have. Whether it was uncertainty about seat quality, struggling to find last-minute tickets, or just not finding any good deals. But here's the game changer. GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Seriously, this app makes getting tickets a breeze. Plus, the prices actually drop as game time approaches. It's like getting rewarded for procrastinating. I've been using GameTime for a while now. Let me tell you, it's life-altering. I can browse through any upcoming Major League Baseball game and other hot events, snagging killer last-minute deals, even double-checking your views from your seat before you buy. And the best part, you get all-in pricing with no hidden fees at checkout. So if you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the GameTime app and create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions may apply. All right. Well, around the portal and roster construction, what does all of that mean? Listen, I think Dan Hurley has made a concerted effort to create the type of culture that no matter who he brings in, the following year, those players stay unless they are told something that changed during the year, right? Because he's been asked that question. How do you get your kids to stay? How do you bring in, quote unquote, the old souls, the guys who want to be coached? And he said it starts with having honest conversations. So I'd imagine they've had honest conversations with Solomon Ball, with Jalen Stewart, with Jaden Ross, with Apostolos Romelu, and that's why he transferred, and also with Youssef Singari. So those 5 gentlemen, as well as Steph Castle, were all given the goods, so to speak. Like, what's the goods on them? What do they need to work on? What do they need to get better at? Are they considering a change? And only one of them said that they were going to go someplace. Steph Castle was more, you have to go, man. You're going to be a top 5, top 10 NBA draft pick. I was on Locked On Blazers talking about how I feel like Steph Castle's ceiling is a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He is that good, guys. Like, when he gets the opportunity to kind of be in that open game in the NBA, sky's the limit. Now, so what does that mean for UConn going forward with the portal? I feel like there are some really great opportunities to bring in guys so that there are competition, right? So whether it's Koby, whether it's Max Shulga, whether it's Aidan Mahaney, or other players in the portal that we haven't even really discussed yet. One portal that I thought was an interesting one that came out was AJ Hoggard from Michigan State, point guard, bit of a malcontent. I feel like that's the Tom Izzo way. I feel like you get him away from, Sparty there, he might actually have some fun playing in this UConn offense. But did anyone get a surprise or feel like there was a surprise entrance in the transfer portal with Nate Santos, who's a Dayton forward, and automatically think that it was a Koby Brea announcement? I know I did. Players around the portal for the past, I think the top players, I guess, of the portal of the last 5 or so days since about April 23rd. Kadari Richmond. I wish Kadari the best. I really hope he goes away from the Big East. There's something about him being linked to St. John's that makes me feel like Rick Pitino is doing a little chicanery and some trickeration, if you will, to be a portal. Think about a word we can use for tampering, portal tamper or portal popper. It would just feel gross. I know he's got a history of doing that to us with Naheem Aleem, and I would hate to do that to our boy Shaheen Holloway there at Seton Hall. So I don't know. That would be a crappy one that stays within the Big East, because Kadari Richmond just absolutely kills UConn. When he sees this logo that's behind me, it's like he's Superman. Some other names in the portal that I feel like are really good opportunities. Some of them played in the Final Four. 2 from Miami, Norched Omir and Wooga Poplar. Wooga Poplar's got the best name in the entire transfer portal, but Norched Omir is a pretty cool name too. He's also been linked to St. John's as well as Memphis and Texas Tech. Wooga, I haven't heard, was contacted by Kansas. I can't believe that would be a case with them getting Rylan Griffin as well, because he's another catch and shoot, really kind of twitchy guard, 6'5". I wouldn't mind seeing him for UConn. He's also very very familiar with NIL money. I feel like he got a lot from Miami. They tend to pay their players very well. Kansas, same thing. He's also been another Kentucky transfer option. So that's another one. Koby, if you're listening, they're not focusing on you, kid. They're focusing on bodies. They want to get a bunch of players in there, because I feel like Mark Pope, this is a win now for Mark Pope. He was the 5th option for Kentucky, and they have to be a top 10 team. They have to be a team that is going to compete for the SEC championship. And then it's not good enough for that delusional fan base. So you got to think that they're going to be trying to make the Final Four this year. So whether it's Koby plus Wooga plus whoever else, another name from the Big East, Posh Alexander from Butler, is in the transfer portal. He's a New York kid. I've heard he's considering Texas Tech. Well, maybe we'll have to ask Tobias Bass next time we have him on the show if there's any truth to that. But if you haven't noticed, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now and available on the free Fire TV channels app. Before I sign off and say bye for the day, remember, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button, click it. Helps us grow the channel, helps us get to where we want to go. But also, in terms of the transfer portal, we're almost done with this, guys. We're going to talk about this probably through mid-May, like I said, because even if the portal closes and we're all set, I'm more excited for the day the portal closes and the folks that we have on our roster are locked in and they'll be locked on UConn. And they really do. That really does make me feel like warm and fuzzy inside that Hurley has been able to keep his top players and not have them, be seduced by another program. So that's a positive. And remember, said this today on X, formerly Twitter, that there are still 1,700 plus names in this transfer portal. No matter how many players commit, there seems to be about 1,500 to 1,700 kids still in this portal. Those players are still looking for their next place where fans like us can really love on them and show them the unconditional support that they're going to get because they're going to want to come here. So I don't hate on Koby Brea or Aidan Mahaney or all these players that came to UConn for a visit and didn't commit right away. We need to stop with all that stuff. These are now business decisions that whether their handlers are dealing with or if their parents are also handlers, guys. Like if you're being run by your parents in college basketball, most of these kids are maybe 21, 22 years old. Some of them are from really great backgrounds. Some of them are from not so great backgrounds. So a lot of that comes into play. And I think part of that also, we need to show a little empathy that this also could be the only time that any of these players see these types of sums of money being thrown at them. So they're trying to manage all of the money that's being thrown at them to disappointing specific fan bases to then being close to home to being not close to home. It's a lot. Look, it's a lot in whether we want to talk about it or not, and whether it's good show content or not the spicy take that you want. All of that matters. And I'm never going to be the one that's like, well, the hell with that guy. He didn't come pick UConn. If we play against Kentucky and Koby Brea is playing for Kentucky, the hell with that guy. But for that day. So I wish him the best. I want him to take a look at Lexington. I went there for another type of assignment. It's not a very nice town, in my opinion. But and I've lived a lot of different places, big cities, small cities, and just wouldn't attract me. But then again, if someone was giving me $1 million to come play basketball, I might consider it. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies. And go Huskies in the transfer portal.